Hello and welcome to ThePrint. A fire broke out at the storeroom of Delhi High Court Judge Justice Yashwant Varma's official residence on 14th of March, and burnt cash was allegedly found at the scene, igniting a storm of speculation around the incident. Justice Varma has denied all allegations and has called it a conspiracy, while Delhi High Court Chief Justice Devendra Kumar Upadhyay has, in his preliminary investigation, concluded that a deeper probe is warranted into the incident. Now, how has the Supreme Court handled this incident so far, and what sort of debates have the allegations reignited? We'll be talking about this and more in this video. I have with me former Supreme Court Judge Justice M.B. Lokur and former Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court Justice B.A. Khan. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Yeah,
Now, I'll have a few questions for both of you, and both of you can go at all the questions one after the other as you wish. Now, just to start with, I'd like to start with the most recent development in the case. We've seen that the Supreme Court has made public, and this was an unprecedented move. It's made public the report of Delhi High Court Chief Justice Devendra Kumar Upadhyay, who was asked to conduct a preliminary inquiry into the allegations. The court has also released the video footage of the alleged cash found. What do you think about the Supreme Court's handling of the incident so far?
I don't want to go into the details of what has transpired, but there are two issues that I think we need to look into. One is that the incident is supposed to have occurred on the 14th of March.
Right.
Right. That's what the reports say. But that this had happened came into the public domain only on the 21st of March, after 1 week. Now, it also appears that the Supreme Court was told about this either on the 14th of March or on the 15th of March or thereabouts, but nothing happened till the 21st when the incident came in the public domain. So I'm not sure, how the Supreme Court reacted during that period. One of the things that came out in the public domain was that the judge has been transferred to Allahabad High Court. But again, there is no official intimation about this in the sense that the website of the Supreme Court did not mention anything about the collegium meeting and making such a recommendation. And subsequently, the Supreme Court seems to have denied,
Right.
The transfer through a press note. So really, there are a lot of gaps, I think, which need to be filled up. The other thing is with regard to all the details coming out on the website of the Supreme Court, namely the letter that was sent to the judge and the response. Well, I'm, frankly, all in favor of transparency, but I'm not 100% sure. I've not made up my mind on this. I've given it some thought, but I've not, looked into it closely. Whether in a situation such as this, the communication that was sent to the judge, the response of the communication, even if it is redacted, should have been put in the public domain. Right. So, like I said, I haven't made up my mind on this one way or the other.
Okay. Justice Khan, how do you feel about how the Supreme Court has tackled the issue so far?
Apoorva, I think Supreme Court has done its best because it had no other option. In 2019, Supreme Court judgment is there by Justice Kher, which provides for 7-step dealing with action taking mechanism when the Parliament failed in passing the Bill for Standards and Accountability. So those 7 steps are to be followed in any case happening now because there is no other law covering it. Now, those steps, out of those steps, 4 steps have already been exhausted, which Chief Justice has been proceeding on rightly. The gap which Justice Lokur is talking of is a matter of guess. Maybe it could be a time for contemplation or time for consideration what action to take. And on the fourth step, they have asked for the report of the Chief Justice. Then they have set up an inquiry committee of 3 judges, which is again provided under the judgment. And those 3 judges, one can differ with, as many law wizards say, no, there should have been 2 independent people, eminent persons of high integrity to lend it more credibility. But I doubt if beyond that Supreme Court judgment, the composition of committee could have changed. It might be a different thing to say that the committee may not be as strong as one expected to be in a case of grave nature like this. But that's a matter of opinion. So my view is that so far, Supreme Court has been dealing with the matter in accordance with the dictates of its own judgment in the absence of any accountability law in force.
Okay. That does bring me to my next question, actually, because as soon as the news broke on Friday, which is when news articles started coming up on the incident, because so far there was nothing on a public record, so to say, on what was happening in the background. But the issue then was immediately taken up by the parliament as well. Rajya Sabha session was going on, and it led to calls for judicial accountability. Do you think there's a need for greater judicial accountability, and are the current mechanisms enough to deal with such an incident, Justice Lokur?
Well, the Supreme Court has devised something called the in-house mechanism, where in an incident like this, a committee is set up of 2 chief justices and 1 judge of a high court, and that is what they have done. Now it depends on case to case whether it is enough or it is not enough. Whether the committee can find out exactly what has happened. In my view, the committee is more in the nature of a departmental sort of an inquiry. Much stronger than a departmental inquiry, but in the nature of a departmental inquiry. But here, there are a lot of other issues that come up. Okay. One, of course, is the allegation of a large amount of cash.
Right.
But there are other issues. How did the fire happen? Who started it, or was it a short circuit? Right? Where did the money come from? There's supposed to be sacks of currency notes. You can't have sacks of currency notes coming into a judge's house, without anybody knowing about it. There are security guards and so on. So there are a lot of other issues, that are there in a situation like this.
Right.
And I'm not sure whether the in-house committee can go or would like to go into all these other issues, which are also extremely important.
Right.
It's not only a simple case of alleged corruption. It's much, much more. Okay. So what do you do in a situation like this? Now, if it's a case of arson, for example, somebody has deliberately set fire to that place.
And it's a judge's house, so that raises a lot of security concerns as well.
Yeah, but it's a storeroom which is said to be outside the main building. But if it's a case of arson, that's a criminal offense, right? The in-house committee cannot decide whether it's arson or it's not arson, right? It's the fire people who will be able to tell you. The police people will be able to investigate. So there are a lot of issues that have been raised, by this incident, and I'm not sure that the House committee can look into all of them and give a conclusive finding.
So, what would the alternative be then? Where can such a conclusive finding come from, according to you?
Yeah, in a situation like this, it might be good to involve, the fire department and the police. Get them also to investigate, in a sense,
Okay.
co-opt them, so to speak, to the committee.
Okay.
But get them to do it quickly. Whatever has to be done should be done quickly.
Okay, so you're saying that the in-house procedure may not be enough for this incident at least.
Yeah. But there are other incidents, in the past where the in-house committee has worked very well.
Right.
So yeah, it's not that the in-house procedure is not good. It is good, but it also depends upon the nature of what has happened.
Right. Justice Khan, you were just mentioning the lack of a law around judicial accountability, if I'm not wrong, in the previous answer. What do you feel about this, about the current existing mechanisms, and do you think there's a need for an overhaul?
Apoorva, there is a need for judicial accountability, and it has always been there. But this accountability we have not been able to deal with. Neither the parliament nor the judiciary, both have been playing a cat and mouse game. And every time a step is taken in this regard, it is seen and sure to be defeated one way or the other. Now, I will tell you a brief history of. We had the 2068 Enquiry Act.
Right.
Under which this enquiry is Justice Lokur is talking about the enquiry, in-house enquiry, but that enquiry is conducted after an impeachment motion is moved. Now, that was found to be insufficient after the growing complaints of corruption in the judiciary. So thereafter a bill was brought up to make some corrections or amendments in that law so that a foolproof mechanism could be established. That bill was debated for certain sessions and then it was allowed to be lapsed, because political class did not reach a consensus on that. As you find in every case of, if we had 2-3 cases of impeachment, all the 3 cases failed because of the political class favoring the accused judge. So that died, that bill. Then we brought in 2010, the parliament brought, the Judicial Standards and Accountability Bill. Now that was in tune with, there was a restatement of values framed by the Supreme Court under Justice Yashwant Varma at that time, incorporating all those do's and don'ts in that bill. Even that 2000 bill, can you believe it, that is still lingering on? That is still lingering on. It's alive existing in the parliament records. Oh, we have talked about, when something happens today, political class, you say, oh, Rajya Sabha, there was a noise and uproar on this incident. Yeah, because right now it suits them. But when it comes to making a law,
right,
they are somehow shocked. Why they are somehow shocked? Because they are scared of the law being struck down by the judiciary, as happened in the Judicial Appointments Commission Act.
That's actually something that I wanted to talk to both of you about next.
So I don't think there is any serious effort or a sincere effort, as it should be. The result is the degradation of the institution. We, myself and Justice Lokur, come from the same High Court. We used to take pride at one stage, flaunting that our High Court is the best in the country. This is a national capital court. And today I feel so ashamed of belonging to that High Court. So what can you do? Now, these aberration, this is not an aberration, and this is second. So we have been witness to same incident, similar incident. Okay. We are playing badminton. Myself, Justice Lokur, Justice Sanjay Kaul, and one more judge. After we finished the game, we reached the home. I saw on the television that judge, fourth judge, had been raided. Oh. I telephoned Justice Lokur. I said, what is he? He was playing with us badminton just now. Where is he? He said, so Justice Khan, don't interfere in this. Don't get into this. And the matter got into, that was again a matter of shame. But the good thing in that happened is that time Arun Jaitley, who was perhaps backing that judge that time, he advised him to resign. He resigned, and the matter ended at that. I today also suggest that if you want no further filth and garbage to come out of judiciary, this man must immediately resign and save this institution from further controversy, from further debate by media, by people, by everybody on the street. Now, as for Justice Lokur suggesting, no, it is not covering all the issues. It is not surely covering all the issues, but this is a specific jurisdiction given to the Supreme Court for dealing with a judge on a complaint.
Right.
Which they are following according to their judgment. The other course is that somebody has to come with a complaint again for registration of an FIR, which can't be registered without the permission of the Chief Justice of India. If somebody comes in that capacity, that will lead to all over investigation. But that's a second aspect of it.
Right.
As far as the Supreme Court in-house thing is going on, it is going on in accordance with the judgment. Now, what results it will bring, I am not hopeful of any, because this will again, what is the procedure like? It's such a complicated thing. After this inquiry committee, which has been set up by the Supreme Court, it will give its report. Then that report is to be considered by the Chief Justice of India. He may agree or may not agree. Then he will give a choice to this erring judge. Tell him, what do you want? Do you want to quit? Do you want to do this? Or you want to face inquiry again? Then depends on judge's answer. The Chief Justice of India takes another step, and that step may be the last recourse of recommending a motion of impeachment to the president. Then starts that parliamentary procedure. In parliamentary procedure, they will again have a motion. That motion will be again passed, and that motion has to be approved by if it is in Lok Sabha, then by Speaker. If it is in Rajya Sabha, then Chairman. And if he doesn't, for example, this chairman last time, in the case of one of the Chief Justices, Mr. Mishra, that chairman didn't approve the no confidence motion brought by about 60, 70 MPs.
Right.
So it was rejected, and it was all politically oriented. So if it is approved by the chairman Rajya Sabha or Speaker Lok Sabha, then it again an inquiry committee is set up. That inquiry committee is set up under the Inquiries Act of 1968. And that is something like a trial where all these issues which Justice Lokur was mentioning can be covered and can come in. And after that inquiry committee gives that report, it goes back to the parliament for voting. And there, if you have a political backing, the vote may fail. If you don't have, it may succeed, but till date, nothing has succeeded.
Okay.
And in future also, nothing will succeed. I'm sure about that. Because this is such a, what can I tell you, Burman? This is I call it politico-judicial.
Okay.
It is such a nexus.
Okay.
I don't know. I remember when I was brought to the Delhi High Court, all these friends opposed for the first time, no outsider should be brought to the Delhi High Court.
Okay. We should actually speak about appointments also, Justice Khan. In fact, okay, you mentioned, and this is something that I wanted to talk about as well, apart from NJAC and appointments, that you mentioned the next steps that can come in Justice Varma's case. Justice Lokur, just coming to you briefly, you mentioned that, just in-house procedure may not be enough, and maybe the police and fire department should be co-opted at least for probe. Do you also, what do you think would be the ideal next steps then? They be just co-opted for probe, or should action just go on like Justice Khan suggested? Should that procedure be followed then? How do you visualize this going forward?
Yeah, you see, there is an established procedure. As Justice Khan was explaining, there is an established procedure, namely this inquiry report the in-house committee will give its report.
Right.
The Chief Justice of India may accept it, may reject it. All right. If he rejects it, perhaps that's the end of the matter. Okay. Now, if he says, no, I think there is some substance in the allegations,
okay,
then a recommendation can be made to the president to start impeachment proceedings. Okay. So there is this established procedure.
And that's what we see going ahead.
Yeah, that's what's happening.
Okay. Just talking about appointments now, Justice Lokur, not just on judicial accountability, we also see a debate on the NJAC, which is the National Judicial Appointments Commission, being reignited. And that's a debate, I think, every time there's a storm within the judiciary, that debate always tends to come forward again. How do you view this debate?
Well, I have already expressed my opinion that judicial independence is absolutely important, right? And the Supreme Court has held, and I was one of the judges,
Right.
that the NJAC Act, is whittles away judicial independence. Okay, but in the procedure that is being followed, okay, I'm assuming that the NJAC does not come into existence. It has not come into existence, and the collegium system continues.
Right.
Now, there is some tweaking that is required. All right, the Supreme Court has, from time to time, made some improvements in the procedure for the appointment of judges. But a lot more needs to be done.
Right.
Okay, that is one. There's no question about that. The second thing is that those who criticize the collegium system are not in a position to give or have not given an alternative. If not the collegium system, then what? Okay, so you can go on criticizing it, but unless you say that there is an alternative and this is the alternative, and it's a better alternative.
With the independence intact, you mean?
Yeah, keep the independence intact. Now, what is the alternative that is being suggested? Nobody is suggesting an alternative.
Justice Lokur, since you mentioned that there's a lot more that can be done, could you please elaborate a bit on that? A few pointers on what more, according to you, should be done.
Yeah, well, I think the scrutiny process, for example, should be speeded up. Now what happens is the collegium takes a decision, right? Makes a recommendation, and the government doesn't do anything for 2 years. All right, or after 2 years, it sends the file back to the Supreme Court, saying that you please reconsider. Now, why should these things happen? Can't there be some kind of a discussion, if necessary, across the table and finish off with it? And there are instances the Supreme Court has said judgments. There is a judgment which says that once you reiterate a recommendation, the executive should accept it.
Right, of course.
Okay, but that's not happening. Why is it not happening? Who is to be blamed? If you have to put blame on somebody, who is to be blamed for this? It can't be the collegium. It has to be the executive.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, there has to be some kind of a accepted procedure that should be followed. Now, that accepted procedure was being followed for a considerable period of time, but in the recent past, meaning in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, 5 years, the established procedure is not being followed.
Right. Okay. Justice Khan, what do you think about the entire NJAC debate? Do you think there needs to be an...
My view is totally different. Justice Lokur has been a member of that bench, and according to me, that judgment was flawed. And according to me, even the composition of that appointments commission was again flawed. Because that time I remember we were debating this issue, because this is the most bogus mechanism ever prevailing for recruitment of judges.
So what do you mean by this? Which is the bogus mechanism? Are you talking about
this collegium? This collegium? You don't know inside of it. Justice Lokur knows inside of it. It is such a bogus system that there is no criteria at all on which basis you select a candidate. That's why all these problems arise. You get candidates on what merit? And now a person like this, if he then goes on staking cash in his storeroom, what do you do about it? Now, therefore, there is no transparency. Now, you know, that attitude of holier than thou thing, independence of judiciary sensitivity is again brought in and used as a shield for any reform of sorts. Now, in this collision right now, as Lokur was saying, there may not be a better option available. But you know, other countries have judicial appointment commissions, broad-based commissions, in which there are procedures, criteria provided for selection of a candidate. Now, those candidates have to pass a test and then come to become a judge. And those tests include all this integrity, honesty, this thing and that thing. And those candidates are interviewed. Now, look at the UK, what's happening. Now, why can't, it's not good to say that nobody is suggesting an alternative. Alternatives we have been suggesting. That now, when we say have a broad-based commission, now South Africa, take South Africa.
Okay.
When we say have a broad-based commission, now what are they doing? They are selecting their own people, say we will have one minister, one law secretary, some eminent person to be nominated by the government. That could be me also. And one and two Supreme Court judges. Now the majority is what? Majority is by the government nominees. Now it was only to see that our majority will naturally go for a candidate which is approved by the government. Now even today, otherwise also, all candidates are cleared by the government before appointment through these agency reports and mechanisms. This is happening. Now, what we are saying is, for example, today, if we had a Judicial Appointments Commission, it would have been an ombudsman. We need not have to go for a parliamentary vote on an action if such an institution was existing. So I beg to disagree that this is the best thing available. This best thing is a result of, in my view again, by a wrong interpretation of provision of the Constitution to absorb this, usurp this power.
Right.
So there is a need for Judicial Appointments Commission, but the Judicial Appointments Commission must be broad-based. It must include different sections of society, and it must be composed of men of integrity, and it must adopt a criteria for selection, and it must have powers to deal with such nonsense also of stacking of cash and other things. But that will not happen again, because both political expediency and judicial self-interest is involved. Judicial self-interest is no, we will not allow this power to be parted with. 4 or 5 people, these collegium gentlemen, hold a meeting and say, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine. What is this? Right. And then we have the end product like this, which we are facing today.
Okay. So while this in-house procedure now goes on, I just have one last question for both of you. If we talk about the judiciary as an institution, how can it ensure that it comes out of this unscathed with its integrity intact? Justice Lokur?
Yeah, well, I'd like to be clear about one thing. It's not my opinion that Justice Verma is guilty of whatever he's been accused of.
The in-house procedure is still going on, and we've made
it's
that
still going on. He has given an explanation. The in-house committee will look into that explanation and give their report. So I don't think we can say that because cash was found in a storehouse, therefore he's guilty of corruption.
Of course.
Yeah, that I'm pretty clear about. Now, if that is so, how has this impacted on the judiciary, this one incident? It's first of all, it's too early to say, because we don't know what the result is going to be. Supposing the in-house committee says that, listen, he did nothing wrong, right? It was some sort of conspiracy hatched by somebody.
Right.
Okay, then what happens to the credibility of the judiciary? I mean, people are not going to raise fingers. So really, to say that the judiciary is facing a crisis because of this incident may not necessarily be the correct question to ask,
Right.
right? Because we don't know what's going to happen. Okay, maybe after we get the report of the in-house committee, maybe that might be the appropriate time to ask a question of this nature.
Sure. Justice Khan, what do you think about this?
Again, back to differ. Judiciary is not a revenue department or a forest department. There are certain proprieties and sensitivities involved. If there is a allegation against me and I am the judge, my propriety demands that I should set myself aside. It's not that, I will go on sticking, resort to technicalities and then say this. Can you believe, how can a person say that, no, it was stacked within my knowledge and in my presence? Nobody will say that. And by the time you go on proving that, he will continue to be the judge, he will receive the salary, he will discharge judicial functions. Then what are you doing? How are you dealing with him? So my suggestion in this would be, and even for purposes of inquiry, just as in other cases, in common man's case, we say, till the inquiry goes, let him be away from the place or let him be away from the job.
Okay.
Similarly, if an inquiries are going on, let this fellow resign. He must resign on a sensitivity, whether it's a fact or is not a fact. The very fact that this thing has happened in his house shows that this judge has been somewhere going wrong, hobnobbing with somebody. How does this cash come in? This is a matter of common understanding. Now, once the allegation is out, how can this judge wields a moral authority? What is his authority tomorrow if he sits in the court? If some litigant tells him that you chore of a man sitting here as a judge, what will he do? No, this is not, the judiciary is not a government department that you can go on with inquiries and inquiries. Just as in Ramaswamy's case, he was allowed to continue till he retired. After he was made a head of the commission, Human Rights Commission. Can you believe it? And it was a proved case. And in that proved case, you have to prove what? You have to prove incapacity or what is that mistake? Proven misconduct. Two things you have to prove. Now, even if you have proved, you allow him to continue. Now, in Dinkaran's case, Justice Lokur will remember, there was an inquiry committee set up under Aftab Alam. He was the Chief Justice then. And that inquiry committee was going on, that Dinkaran resigned. Now, whole thing was proved futile. Now the debate was going on whether to continue that inquiry and to suggest a ultimate whatever penalty that inquiry would suggest. It was not done. That is still pending. Pending with the Supreme Court. Now, how are you dealing with these issues? And how can we expect any result? And how can we say that we have taken some action which will be a deterrent tomorrow for anybody to come? And basic route, may I tell you, is the recruitment. Basic route is the recruitment. In a recruitment, you are getting in people who are suffering from various dubious this thing, and still expecting them to. And now Delhi is a very hot market, It's a very difficult thing to pass through this market.
So it is a very complicated debate, is what we've gotten out of this conversation with Justice Lokur and Justice Khan. It is a developing story, and at The Print, we're keeping track of all the developments. So do keep an eye out on our website, which is theprint.in, as well as our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us, Justice Lokur and Justice Khan. And thank you for all our viewers for joining us as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Justice Lokur. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Khan. Yeah.